asked Stephanie if she could do that, and she agreed. And apparently, I don't know whether you need to help her, we're just being friendly. But Amy is involved in this now, and they're both our own members, so you all know them.
Do you want any lights off, or everybody content with that?
Looks good.
So I'm gonna talk about the computer side of it, and then Amy is gonna take off with the app side. So on your phone, that way you get a dose of both as you go.
Gee, I didn't even know you could do it on your phone.
Yes, yep. So see, we're already,
Yeah.
you know, learning stuff, and we're on the first slide, so we're doing great. So Find a Grave, it's such a great tool. It will help you find information about people. It tells you where they're buried. Just a lot of great, sometimes if you're lucky, there are obituaries there, and it's some things, you know, it's free. You don't have to have a membership with Ancestry or Family Search or anybody. You can just get in there and look information up. So really we're gonna talk about what it is, just go over how to use it, and I'm gonna show you that. And then Amy's gonna come up and talk about the mobile app, and then we'll wrap up if you have any questions. So I love this quote, and I think of Find a Grave this way. When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. And really, that's what Find a Grave is. I have found so many great things I never knew before, accidentally. And it's fantastic. I learned that one of my ancestors, I knew that he died young. He had a child when he died. He died in Evansville. And when I got on Find a Grave, I discovered that he had a first wife. What? I had no clue. I thought the scandal was, you know, he died in Evansville. No, he was married before. It's so interesting, the things you don't know and what you can find. So Find a Grave, like I've said, is full of treasures. There are 226 million memorials, and that has started in 1995. You can search for specific cemeteries if you know the cemetery they're buried in, or you can look for specific grave sites or people who are buried there. And you can also contribute information. So if you're out and you go, let's say Memorial Day, and you're laying flowers out, you can add information about the stones that are around the people that you're at, and it just further helps other genealogists who are out there looking. So we're going to talk, how do you even search? So you're going to want to go to findagrave.com, and then you can pick a cemetery or a memorial. So I'm going to get out of here and show you that really quick. So findagrave.com, and once you're there, you can look for memorials. So that's going to be the specific grave that's there or person that you're looking for, or you can look for cemeteries. So what I was going to show you, I'm just going to type some in. So Elizabeth Buck was one of my old neighbors. I don't know when she was born. I don't really remember when she died, but I know that she was buried in Fountain County. And so it's going to pre-populate the, if you know the county, it's going to put in Indiana and the US, because you can search worldwide, and you're not just limited to the United States. So you'll select it and search. And there she is. So it tells me when you search, sometimes if you have a Smith person in your family, you could end up with 40 returns. And so you're really just gonna have to dig, you know, I know there's only one Betty Buck. It'll tell me the cemetery, and it tells me where it's at. I get her birth and death dates, and when you click on it, you can get into the memorial. And if there are photos, you'll see that. I have a photo of her that she gave me a long time ago, and so what I need to do is add, the photo. And so if you have a photo that you wanna add, you can do that. If there's no picture of the stone, you can request a photo. And then that'll go out there, and there'll be people that you can volunteer if you like. You can, get these requests emailed to you, and then you can go out to the cemetery, you can take a photo, and then you can add it to Find a Grave. So with hers, if you look at the stone, when this came out, the photo that she took was Elizabeth Buck, Foxworthy, Rowderbush. So Mrs. Buck was married several times, and her married names were on the stone. So when I found her, I just got lucky because I actually had to drive. I knew where the cemetery was, and so I drove out to take a look, and I couldn't find her on Find a Grave. And it was because when this person listed the obituary, they listed, or the picture of the stone, and they created this memorial, they had her listed as Elizabeth Rowderbush. And so that wasn't her name, and so I was able to suggest an edit, and I sent her the obituary, because I had a copy of that, so they're able to make a correction on that. And then as you get into this, you'll see where they have the parents listed, they'll have the spouse, and these are things that are always changing. I was just gonna show you a few things. It gives you the links to the records that are on Ancestry. So as you're doing research, you can go through and you can look at all the different records that are there. You can do it for free here on the lock-in night, the late night research that we do. You can do it for free, otherwise you have to have an account to look at the Ancestry. But it is there, they start connecting those. And they tell you at the bottom of the page, it will tell you who created it, when they added it. It will have a number. Now this number will become important because you can add family members. So you can make those connections if you know who they are. So if you have that number at the bottom, and you'll always be able to come back to this page and find it. But if you have that number, you can start connecting, making some of those family connections when you suggest the edits.
I have a question.
Shoot.
For the family members, are those only the family members that are in that same cemetery?
No,
Okay.
it will, now both of her parents are both there. Her first husband is not. So when you click on that, it will tell you his birth, it gives you when they died, and then it tells you where the cemetery is.
Thank you.
Mhm. And then you can also look, it'll give you the link to the cemetery, so you can click on that. And as you go down, you can look at all the cemetery photos if you want to, what is out there. You can get directions. Let's say you wanted to go visit, you can get out there. And the cemeteries also have their own ID number. So if you have that and you need to make searches you can. You'll see when you go to the cemetery, the photo requests that I mentioned, it will tell you who made the request, or what stone they're looking for, who made the request, and when it's done. So let's say you're out there and you take a handful of photos and you get home, then you can claim this request, you can fulfill it, meaning you can upload a photo and take care of it. It's just something like the next time I go out there, I'll take several photos and see if I can help out. And so you can see, you could look at cemeteries that are nearby to you. Amy and I were talking about that earlier. You can be a good neighbor and go out and take some photos, because there are always requests that are out there. And stop me anytime if you have questions while we're going through. I'm just gonna show you the things that I use most when I'm out there. So you can upload headstone photo if
Do
you're
you
out
have to
there.
do you have to sign up to be able to upload photos as well?
You have to sign, you have to join the website, and you can see, like, I haven't signed in, so it doesn't have my info. This is just what you can see and do for free. But yes, if you have a stone that you wanna upload, it will ask you to just give your name and information and an email address. Then you can add a memorial, you can look at all of them. Again, you can go through the photos that are there. And something that's really nice, this old Baptist cemetery, it's out in the country, there used to be a church across the street. The church is gone, cemetery's still there. The church actually moved into Newtown. And so when it did, the cemetery stayed there. But if you didn't know that that was there, you also can see what other cemeteries are nearby. So like this one is same thing out in the country, you might not know it's there. But then also some of the smaller cemeteries, and it'll tell you how many memorials are there, how many are photographed, and if there are requests, or with GPS, sorry. So you can also add a GPS location, which I think Amy will talk about when we're there. And then you can look at the other photos that are out there. So that was one example. Let's see.
If you add a picture, is there any other information you need to enter, or just the picture that's requested?
You would add the picture, and then you have to type in what you see on this,
Okay.
on the stone. Yeah, so you're just adding the information that's there. And it could be that, there will be other, sometimes there'll be more than one memorial. So like my example with Mrs. Buck, I know her name is last name was Buck when she passed away, but they had listed Rowderbush. So, you know, it could have been that I would go in and I know she's there, so I could have taken, had I not come across her just in searching, I could have added a memorial and made it correct, and had the correct information. So sometimes you might find more than one memorial for someone. So it just depends. It's a lot of detective work, but it's so fun. There's so much information out there.
Regarding
Yes.
that, the search process, say there's 4 or 5 names to an individual, like you were just describing, is the search process in that program such that it will use sort of an either or approach, or does it require everything to be exactly right? An exact match, or will it give a partial match? All partial matches?
It will give you some partial matches. Let me see if I can think of one. I was just looking for somebody the other night, and I got a whole bunch.
I have seen two before.
There you go.
There's two.
I've
I've
seen
that.
seen some very, just two different things.
Alright.
Are you supposed to like if there's one already there, are you supposed to like ask permission from the person that needs a memorial to make the change?
You can, yeah,
Yeah.
that's where you would suggest that
Yeah.
edit. And sometimes, in my experience, like the lady with that, with Mrs. Buck, she never responded to me, but she made the correction, because eventually I came back and it was right.
Okay.
So you never know, you know, they may or may not.
That's why you'll see two
Yeah, that's
memorials,
why-
so
yeah,
someone
that's why
will
I've
go
seen
ahead
that
and fix
before,
it, then
yeah.
make a whole
Yeah.
new one.
Yeah.
And you'll see, so I'll show you this other thing too, because it's interesting. So I typed in what, you know, just Harriet Lockwood in Indiana. And so it does give you, as you go through, it will give you everybody that they can find, and all from different date ranges. So you may not know, and if you're looking for like a Mark Smith, you'll get where the first name is Mark, last name Smith, but you'll also get where, you know, somebody's first name who has Mark as a middle name and Smith. So sometimes you will get a lot of responses back, and then it's just a matter of narrowing down who it is.
You also need to be careful because it's just people putting in information.
Right.
Yeah. And they may not know what they're talking about.
And there are, just like that lady that put in Mrs. Buck, I mean, she went with what she saw, and they don't know. So this was one of the other things I was gonna show you. We did talk about St. Mary's.
Yeah. Sure was.
It's such a cool cemetery. But you can get directions, 8,600 memorials in that one. And then it gives you some of the other cemeteries that are nearby. And only just a couple of stones, but I want to show you this. So you can look by cemetery, or we could pull her up. And so the stone is there, they put in the information that they have. You'll always be able to see who added this photo. So another thing, and so we know this is the right guy, because Rufus
Yeah,
is
that's
there.
actually the Harriet that you had, maybe her, Rufus and Harriet's daughter, because of the age, 1847.
Oh,
If you
I
went,
see
if you would
that.
go back, there you go, right
Yes.
there, that's the one, that's the mother.
Yep. So we have the daughter here, and so someone has made that connection, they've
Pull
got
up
her
Rufus
parents.
and see where he's buried at. To say, buried
At
at sea.
sea.
There you go.
Yeah,
Wow.
Lost
he
in a
went down on
shipwreck.
a ship, yeah,
That's
his was
great.
a shipwreck.
Oh, my goodness.
So also, if you have somebody who's cremated and you scatter their ashes somewhere, and you know that that was done, you can put cremated in there. So it does ask if you know how they died, or where they're buried, you can put like this, at sea, you can put cremated, remains scattered. And so then there's still a record of that person's passing, even if you don't know where it is. So this is really cool, lost in the shipwreck of the SS Central America off the coast of South Carolina. Very cool. And this is what I think is really neat, is that people will put in the obituaries as well. So you'll find a lot of great information out here. One other thing, if people want to leave flowers, like you could leave a note and say, love you, Mom, I miss you. You can do that. You can leave flowers for other family members. So it's just kind of like dropping a little breadcrumb for future people that might come and, oh, you're related. And then, you know, maybe there's family out there. The other thing I wanted to show you, see if it comes up for me. The people who contribute.
Yeah.
So we can see that this person's been a member for 13 years. She has a Find a Grave ID that she works under. You'll get a little bit of information about that person. If they follow other members, you can get that. This is what I find so interesting. So you can tell the people that have when this first came out, it was a big thing, like how many memorials can you get? And so they would take a photograph, create a memorial, take a photograph, create a memorial. It's wonderful, because all of these cemeteries are getting out there online, and we can see them, we can search, and you don't necessarily have to go there. But that's a lot.
So,
You know,
so
they can't know all these people.
Would those people like that do that maybe associated with the cemetery? I mean, the cemetery owners and caretakers or whatever, are they major contributors to Find a
Yeah.
Grave?
We don't really know.
Okay.
So
So I mean, you have a
this-
name there, but there's what, Amy something?
Right, Amy H. And
Amy
she
H, we
says,
don't know much, but.
she says she's a research library manager at the Historical Association.
Oh, and
So
it's
in this
County
case,
Circle, okay,
yeah.
gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, Stephanie, I can say, the one for Ms. Buck,
Uh-huh.
Lisa Epperson,
Uh-huh.
I've seen her name quite a bit, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
do,
Yeah.
I do this Boone County, also Hamilton County, and she's in Fountain County, she's in
Yes.
Montgomery County.
She
I
gets the
think her
motivation.
and her husband, it's just a hobby,
Hobby.
Yeah.
and they
Okay.
go around and
So
they
like
are
geocaching.
putting quite a few memorials on. They
Okay.
just love cemeteries
We'll
and
have
they're,
to-
and they're cataloging them.
Hey Stephanie, have you
Uh-huh.
ever transferred one before?
I have not.
I
So
have.
I have asked, but it didn't get moved. And Find a Grave recently made changes. Like, it would be a up to the manager if they
Right,
wanted
the
to
manager,
transfer
At
it
the
to
very
you.
bottom.
Yes,
Contact
You say
them.
transfer,
Well, when I was talking about transferring, is like on one of my ancestors, well, like that person did maybe a whole cemetery.
yeah.
But no relation to who that tombstone is, and that was my great grandfather. Well, she said, well, I can transfer that in your name.
Oh, okay, I got you.
yeah, if you have a family connection, you can make that request and they'll do that for you. It used to be tricky, you had to convince that person to transfer it to you. It's a lot better now. Find a Grave has changed some of the rules so that if you can show a close family connection, they'll make that transfer. So I'm just curious how many Lisa has, 83,000. So she has had a lot, but she's added 54,000 photos. So she has definitely been busy.
Well, I guess if you're doing that, I mean, you have duplication? Is there lots of duplication?
I've not found a lot.
Okay. So she's
just
she's
occasional.
going around everywhere, and she's taking pictures,
Yeah.
and she's and she's downloading that.
Mhm.
Is there gonna be something that says, already there?
No, it depends on how you put the information in. If you search, like, let's say I typed in, well, let me show you this.
I'm guessing that she is searching for that name. She's probably going into the cemetery to see what's there and then who she has to add, like, she's usually pretty good about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she goes to libraries and looks up and, like, copies
Yeah,
what's
sure. I mean,
already
there's,
been
yeah, I mean,
bought. I'm
there's
not
lots of
sure.
books that have
Yeah, I'm
that,
not sure
and
how
so
in
you
depth
might
she
use that as
goes,
your
but-
guide, right?
It's kind of like Wikipedia.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's what I
it's
was just
just
saying,
people
Wikipedia
adding.
is
There'll
kind
be
of
human
basically
error.
written that contributed to quite
Yeah.
often, right?
Yeah.
Or updated.
And so really that's about all that I had for.
So are you a member?
Of Find a Grave?
And
Yeah.
is it a cost?
No cost, it's free.
And who is actually behind Find a Grave? Is that Latter-day Saints or, Ancestry? I mean, Ancestry and Find a Grave are,
I think it started out famous people, where famous people buried.
oh, famous people, yeah.
And it kind of
That's
popped
what
out
it
there.
does. I've seen that, yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
that
Yeah, that's how it
same
kind of
format.
started.
So they
Everyone
just,
would know where so-and-so was buried.
not so famous.
Yeah.
You got it, yeah, got hooked into ancestry. Yeah. Everybody else.
You ready for me?
Thank you.
Thanks for looking at that.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the app, and you do need to be registered in order for the app to work. So, again, it's free, they do want that email address, and then you have to have another password to keep track of. But once you have that, then when you get the app, everything that you've done online is on the app.
And you can go back and forth between the computer and your app. It's,
Makes
once
it-
you
it's
sign
like-
in,
yeah, makes
yeah,
it
it's
easier
one.
to.
Sorry, I'm in there. Okay. So, if you have a smartphone and it's Apple, you can go to, the Apple App Store on your iPhone, and so this is what you're looking for when you're searching for the App Store. And Google Play if you have an Android, and then, download it. And then if you are, it might ask you to sign in, but once I've signed in, it stays signed in. And then you can see, like for me, I was taking pictures on my phone, which is, so this is what I was seeing when I opened it up, so you can see where if I hit my memorials, it'll show all that I put up there and some of the pictures that I've done. So I brought it back to Bratton, so I always use that as my example, right? So I just searched where Stephanie showed you where you search for cemeteries. I just searched for Old Pioneer Cemetery, Waynestown, and it pulled it up. And these little dots, where you see the dots right underneath, those are pictures that people have uploaded of the cemetery. So there's 7 pictures. And so one was like the historic marker that's there, just various things there. If you click the heart right there, it means you want to be a photo volunteer. So at first I thought that was like, oh, I want that to be a favorite or I wanna like it. Nope, it's to be a photo volunteer, so be careful. The banner is if you wanna make it a favorite. And so when you sign in, it'll have, right down there, it says favorite cemeteries, it'll add that then on your favorite cemeteries. And then, the more button, if you hit the more button, then you can undo your photo volunteer or undo favoriting your cemetery. And so then you can see right down under there, you can say add grave photos, add memorial, or more. So the way I was using this is I've been working on the Old Pioneer Cemetery on Find a Grave. So I was going out there with, I've been plotting, Deli, you've probably heard me say this before, Deli had printed off the old maps that are in there from the WPA, the Works Progress Administration. And so they did the rows funky. They're laid out north to south, but on there they made the rows east to west, and they're not set in rows east to west. And so it's very confusing. And so I was going to go through and identify every stone that I could and then turn it over to the township trustee, because you probably heard me say they have drunk drivers driving in there. So she was calling me, asking me who these people were, and they have no map of who's there. I mean, I don't know how many cemeteries do, but I thought it would be helpful for them. So I was going through and with notebook and pen, paper, I was writing it down, but also while I was there, I had my phone open. And with the app, you can actually, it says add GPS coordinates. You set your phone right over the tombstone and hit the button, and it adds the GPS to Find a Grave online. So, let's see, it might be the next one that it'll show how much is photographed.
And the nice part is when you hit that GPS, if it's on there, when you open the app and you're trying to find exactly where someone's grave is, if you hit that GPS, the coordinates, then it'll take you to where the stone is.
Yeah.
So it's
Leave that
helpful
trail
when
of
you're
corn or anything
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. So you're not walking up and down reading
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
stone.
Better than this board on this stone and triangulating with a compass.
Exactly. I was also able to search that cemetery if I was standing in front of a stone, search for the name under the cemetery, and if it was there were a few that weren't on there, and there's a few that are in the cemetery that aren't even on the 1940 records that we have up in the library, and so I was able to add them. But also, if there wasn't a photo of that gravestone, I was able to take the photo right then and there and upload it. So it's great, because I was this is why it's taken me a while, because I've been kind of methodical going stone to stone.
Have you been able to get any of the ones that are stacked on the side?
I've taken peeks. I've kind of talked to the guy that's taking care of them, but I haven't started moving anything. But I do have some family ones that were standing that were then knocked down that I did pick one up and move it to where it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
All right, so then, so as I'm taking these pictures, this is more of, if you have it open, it's scrolling down. It's not really going left or right, it's going up and down. But so I'm taking screenshots of my phone as I'm making this. So there's that, and then if you just keep scrolling down, then you'll see how many memorials, how much is photographed. You can see 57% with GPS, so I'm only 50% in. And you can kind of see a little bit of the famous memorials there. And then the amount of requests. I have one of those in there I filled, but it's still under there, so I don't know if I need to go hit some other button. So you can kind of see the top of the famous memorial. So here, when I kept scrolling down, it just has William in there. Again, you see the dots under his memorial. That's how many pictures are uploaded just for William under his specific memorial. And then you can see right here, it says map memorials with GPS. That's a second way in, because when you have somebody's specific one there, it'll ask you, you know, it'll have the button there and you want to add the GPS if it's not been added. Okay, so this is, if you hit the add memorial button, sorry. So this is where it's gonna ask, these are the different fields that you can type in. The biggest challenge I had when I was using this in the field was the sunlight. It definitely, you can see it better when it's gray out. So there were sometimes I was huddled over it like this with my back to the sun, trying to add some of this stuff. You can see it's pretty thorough of all the different information you can add. Yeah, like the bio, of course, you probably wouldn't be typing that in the field, but just getting the basics off the tombstone.
You had a file on the app? Like, let's say you had an obituary, could you add the?
Yeah, it says well, you can add the grave photos. I imagine if you had the photos, the obits right there in your
Yeah,
pictures,
yeah,
it'll let you.
Okay.
You just have to
Like
click it
share
and
it
then
to
scroll
something
through
or
your
link it?
pictures.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great if you don't have your laptop with you and you
Yeah.
have some time to kill and you're
Right.
somewhere that's. Alright, so there's where I hit add the grave photo, and that's it pops up the take photo of grave, or choose existing is where it takes you to your pictures on your phone and you can add it. Okay, that's it. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
What is the virtual cemetery? Is that where there's no cemetery, they were cremated,
Mhm.
memorial?
That might be, I don't really know for certain, but, I don't know, cause I would say like, let's use Camp Atterbury as all the cemeteries in Camp Atterbury as an example, but when I looked up people that were buried, so Camp Atterbury, are you familiar with it?
A little bit.
It's in Bartholomew County, and so the government took it over, and within there is like 4 or 5 small country cemeteries, and so they were, moving the cemeteries, and so now they have a new map of the new plots, and then they, Camp Atterbury's under there, and then they'll say which wing, and it's supposed to correlate with a certain cemetery. I would think like, something like that would be a virtual cemetery, but I'm not real sure, that's a good question.
Yeah, I just noticed on some of when it was, showing contributors, it said virtual cemeteries, and I think one said 10 or something.
Yeah, I'm not real sure, I haven't used that feature on there.
I'm searching, see if I can find
Okay, oh good,
the answer.
I love smartphones, there's so much you can do. But you can even see the buttons at the bottom too, where it says search, contribute, transcribe, profile. When you were, asking a question earlier about the name or partial listing, what I always like about, the app or the one online is that sometimes if you're in a certain cemetery and you put the last name in, I was always fascinated, like some of the women, if it's their maiden name, it's popping up with their first name, their maiden name, and their last name. So sometimes if you're freshly researching and you're still finding out information, it's great because you can make those connections of,
Yes.
oh, is this a daughter? Is this a niece and brothers? Or, it's really helpful with
You
some
don't
of that
want the partial
information.
match approach, because often you don't have the exact sequence in the correct spelling and correct order. And so then you're sunk if you can't figure it out that way, but the partial match would take care of that situation. I have a separate question,
Sure.
kind of an oddball thing. Does this whole search, location help at all with Native American burials? Do they have, Native Americans, do they have any kind of organized system of their cemeteries?
I
or
mean,
burial locations?
I don't know. I don't know how much the Native American, tribes are using this. I would think
Come to the Frankfurt Public Library, they're gonna have at their monthly meeting, they're gonna have a speaker talking about Indian cemeteries. So, I'll find out for you, and if you come to the next meeting, and I'll.
Well, or if you email me the information.
Yeah, I'll be
pass
happy
it
to
on
do
there.
that, yeah, cause they're gonna have a speaker that will talk about that.
So,
It's completely voluntary, so it just depends, like, sometimes you have individuals doing it, sometimes you have genealogy clubs doing it, adding the cemeteries and the memorials, sometimes it might be, other county organizations, or even at the state level, you just don't know, who's
I just
uploading
don't even-
information.
From a cultural standpoint, I have no idea. I would be a little skeptical that Native
Yeah.
Americans are even involved much in this.
Well, there
I'm
was,
guessing.
there was
Some
one
of
thing
them
that
are
happened.
buried in cemeteries along with everybody else.
But on a tribal, on a reservation.
I don't know.
that's the kind of thing
She's
that-
got 2 graves.
So it would just be up to, I think, the reservation, cause I think you can't go on, right? Like unless you're a tribal member. So I don't know, completely.
There was a time in our history when there was government act, funding came in, they were shipping children east to educate them in the so-called white ways. And, obviously, not all those probably lived, and they were buried. Most likely near the school, I would guess, that they were, but that's, that's the fact of life, that happened at that time. So, that may be what the presentation's about, not necessarily, going where the reservation might be or wherever. I mean, obviously, prior to Jackson, I'm sure there was a lot of burials, but
If I
I
put
don't.
in Osceola,
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if I can get anything useful.
Hey, remember our speaker a couple of meetings ago who had the cemetery on his family land?
Yeah.
And so if he had created a cemetery on Find a Grave and had uploaded those, then like his descendants that were on the West Coast could have, found
We
it.
should reach out to him and find out.
I don't think he has, cause he's not that computer,
Yeah.
Can you answer a question too they might have? Is I know there's Find a Grave, then there's like billion.
Oh, billion
What's the
graves.
difference?
I'm not on Billion Grave. I mean, I do have a membership on that. I just got on recently because of, somebody I was looking for ended up being on there. And lots of times I'll do a Google search and I'll use the Boolean searches where I'll put the, quotes at the beginning and the end because you're telling the computer I want it exactly this and nothing else. And they had popped up on Billion Graves, so I clicked on it, but I don't know, it seems like it's well used. It doesn't seem like ones that seem mainstream though. I mean, Stephanie, have you used it?
I haven't.
So
Do you have to pay?
you don't
to be
have to
on it?
pay, but I almost think Find a Grave is just more
duplicate,
popular,
yeah.
but I'm not sure why.
Well,
Maybe
that's
because
why-
it's older.
That's why I'm always showing people how to do it from upstairs and Find a Grave.
Yeah.
But that's why I hadn't done the other one, so I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it either.
Yeah, so, but good point, Deli, there's also Billion Graves out there.
So I did find the answer to the virtual cemetery. It's a collection of Find a Grave memorials that someone has chosen to group together for whatever reason they like. You can use it to bring together members of a family buried in different physical cemeteries, group members of a high school graduating class or military unit, or collect famous or interesting memorials however you choose.
Well, I would think if you did your family tree, let's say you did a family tree on Ancestry and just out of need to do something extra, go
Yeah.
find their grave and put it in and then do a virtual, right? That would be something you would
Yeah.
attach to that Ancestry, family tree.
Yep.
You can have the graves that go with it.
Do you know if the search, function will do phonetic type searches for alternate spellings?
It used to be pretty finicky. If you made any misspelling, it would tell you it's not in there. So unless they've improved that, I would say no.
Sometimes you put partial, like, if it's a name that could be spelled different ways, you kind of do a partial and it might come up.
Yeah, you
But
could.
what is the rule? You're supposed to put the name that's on the stone, even if it's spelled differently than maybe the person spelled it in real life, or? might
There's
be a
not
weird
really any
spelling.
rules because it's it's
I
like
thought there was a rule. Dylan.
everybody volunteering.
Is there a rule?
No rule
For
that
the,
I
for the
know of.
cemetery?
Yeah,
And
it
then you
used
put
to
like in
be.
parentheses the way it would be, maybe would be spelled,
Yeah.
they would have spelled.
That's what the lady did for Mrs. Buck, because I said
Sometimes
she
you
went
just
by
left
Betty
it
Buck
a
and,
letter off, 'cause
yeah.
maybe it was a stone.
Yeah, I did that a lot where I put the nickname next to the full name in the first name. It used to be that you couldn't even search a cemetery by the first name. You had to put a last name in, which would grate me because if you didn't know how the last name was exactly spelled, or you knew there was, multiple spellings, but you knew the first name, but it would say, oh, you have to put a last name in there, so.
and it is finicky, like, if you know the name of someone who died, they might not be buried in Indiana. And if you don't search just United States, or if you, then you won't get, you'll only get the people in Indiana, and if they're not buried in Indiana, then you don't get them. So if you know what state they're in, you can put that, and if you don't, and you put United States, the number that comes back is overwhelming, there's so many.
This is worldwide, right? So are
Yes.
there many really old memorials, say from England? They've got lots of old graveyards.
I think,
There was
yeah,
some
I think this
now.
started in the States, so I'm not sure how many are. What do you find in Canada? Do you find a lot of Canadians on there, or do you find it more on the Ontario grave sites? We both have Canadian genealogy, so.
Well, I have a story about Canada and Find a Grave, which I wanna tell.
You wanna come up here?
Okay, yeah. The Canadians, I mostly know where they're buried, and I haven't had to go that way.
I usually find more on their specific provincial find, like they have it's not a find a grave site, but like a provincial site, it's not find a grave. So I find more American stuff on find a grave than I do Canadian stuff. That's just me.
There are more people from the United States than from Canada. Before the use of computers, I was a member of the Ontario Genealogy Society, and they sent out a newsletter with a statement that they had found and recorded all the cemeteries in Ontario. Well, these must have been people from a city, because anybody who knows rural Ontario knows that that will never happen. So, but I wrote them a letter right away and said, I know of 4 cemeteries in Missinaibi. Missinaibi probably had a top population of 200 people. It had 35 people year-round until a year ago when a family of 11 left. Anyway, I said, there are 4 cemeteries there that I know about, and you have not listed them. Several years later, they offered the Missinaibi Cemetery readings for sale. So I wrote, I want to buy this book. And I also got a letter from Mrs. McTavish saying, oh, I forgot you. She had gone to the old cemetery twice because the Indians were holding a ceremony and wouldn't let her in. Oh, it's also an overnight trip for her from Sault Ste. Marie. It doesn't have to be, but that's the way she did it. And in one of the cemeteries, she saw 6 bears and wondered how many more were out there. Well, a few years ago, my niece organized the family to go back. I go back every year. But the whole family went back, and I knew that her father-in-law was a genealogist and much smarter about computers than I. So I proposed that we put the Missinaibi cemeteries on Find a Grave, which we did. He did the computer work. I was there with a notebook and camera, and we visited all 4 of them and listed all we could find. We know that we missed many. We know that there are many, many little wooden crosses that have no information, or have information and have been broken off, so you don't know where they were stuck in the ground. But the Missinaibi cemeteries are now on Find a Grave.